was just at a funeral for a friend of mine. His name was Craig Mart, and he gave his life to youth ministry. Craig was not famous. He did not hold highly esteemed jobs, whatever, and he passed away unexpectedly. And I went into his service, and it wasn't just the way people spoke about him, it was who was at his service. There were tons of young men, people that had been through his ministry. Craig cared about relationships, disciple making, and the pastor that spoke about Craig talked out of Romans, and he talked about the fact that he envisions, when Paul was talking about running the race, that he envisions like that when Craig got to heaven, that all of that work that he had done, all of the kids and the lives that he had touched, yes, on earth here, he wasn't praised for those things. He was very under the radar. But that he envisions like a stadium of people in heaven cheering on the work that Craig did here on earth.
And what God's doing with young people, I would argue, specifically post Charlie Kirk, revival happening on the one hand, and then you have the church's responsibility with that revival, and then you have the nuance, which may be the most exciting ever. And God may do the most amazing things. And I really mean that. Like the craziest hodgepodge of things that are going on. Wouldn't that be how it would go? Wouldn't it be like that? It wouldn't be like super easy and slide right into a system. It'd be buck wild. And we're going to have to hold on and try to trust for it.
Helping out with middle school ministry in the past, I've done older kids. So wasn't totally sure what to expect. But yesterday's high schoolers are today's middle schoolers in a lot of ways.
That's how much things have changed, you mean?
Yeah. Kids have so much more access to information. So I find the middle schoolers a lot more skeptical. When I look at this group of kids, to your point, I see unbelievable examples of God working. There was a boy in our ministry who was baptized because he saw the tub when we were meeting as a small group, and he was sold out. Just him making that decision has had ripple effects in our youth ministry. And then you see a level of uneasiness or skepticism from certain kids, but it's not skepticism that isn't warranted. I think that's where these kids, sometimes will get a bad rap. They have questions, and I think based on their life experience.
What happens if you were a kid through COVID? What happens if you were a kid through all this kind of stuff? Your innocence level with that is not afforded to you like a 1990s middle schooler.
I can give you a really tangible example of this. In our Sunday school that meets every other Sunday, we had an opening activity where we put, we were talking about fishers of men, and we put Swedish fish in a bowl with this much water in it. And we were playing Go Fish, and you would go in, and the game was supposed to be that you would go in and get the fish with your mouth. Now, me thinking this would be a fun game for the kids, it would be funny. Right away, I was met with the skepticism of, well, the germs involved in that. I'm not doing that. So we played a modified version where they closed their eyes and used a cup. And one of the kids, to your point, said, you have to remember we grew up during COVID.
Well, seriously, on some level as a society, that breaks your heart because you're hoping for the preservation of innocence. We all want that for our children. But then you think of the reality, maybe the Lord will use it. The name of Jesus and the subject matter of Christianity. It wouldn't be weird to hear a bunch of kids talking about Jesus and then the next 5 or 10 minutes doing something crazy worldly. Like it's right up there in the ecosystem of gen pop culture now. Mm-hmm. You see that in athletes, you know what I mean?
Yes. What you're seeing, when I was growing up, there was a Christian culture. And now I think there's a blending of the two.
More than ever, because I see other versions of that in the culture where kids are like, they got a great sense of like, if you're lying better than I did.
Yeah.
Better genuineness.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I had mentioned earlier, I used the word skepticism, but they have a lie detector. They know what your intentions are almost immediately. Think so much of what they're exposed to from like social media. Now, are kids interested in social media and stuff? Yes. I'm not saying that they're absolved from that, just like the rest of us. But I do think that kids more so than us, believe it or not. They understand that like who you present as online or what's presented to them versus what their lived experience is two different things. It's not an accident that there are 90 kids coming, or 80 kids, whatever the number is on a given week, are coming to youth group. And it's because they want to be in relationship with one another. When I ask kids, like, you know, in a point of frustration, I'll say, you know, hey, why are you coming? You know, is it to learn more about Jesus? And yes, that's part of it, but they're relational. They want to be around each other. They want to congregate. They want to be in friend groups. Maybe now they're starved for that more than ever. There is a desire for community and for real relationships. And I think that's really evident.
That soil is wonderful for the gospel. That's exactly the soil that Jesus sowed into. Going
into the ministry, I mean, one of the things that was so convicting to me actually was my experience with my own kids. When I see my sons as an example, I love my sons to death, but I see them as kids that potentially, as they get older, they're going to have questions. You know, my kids are adopted out of foster care, and I saw behaviors in my sons that going through that process, I needed to develop grace for. My kids are going to be buttoned up, and my kids are going to listen, and it's my parenting and all this stuff. And foster care destroyed that notion for me.
Right.
I started to see is, you know, hey, that kid that may be difficult in youth group is probably going to be my kid. And
that's good.
And how am I going to respond to that? And I want people to love on my kids, and I can do that even if it's not perfect. In youth ministry, every kid, whether it's, like you mentioned, whether it's a broken home, whether it's a hobby or interest that they have, whether it's a way that they communicate with people, every single person is so unique. And so, yeah, you would look at me and, oh, he played sports and he can connect with athletes.
You're like straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've seen people that are much, much, much more gifted reaching particular groups of kids, particular kids.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because their stories align. In a dream scenario of volunteers for a youth ministry, that it would be the most eclectic, crazy group of
like
people.
The disciples.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be a Central Casting. Oh, this is the perfect.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
I mean, there are kids. I look at it like with my own sons. Like both of my sons are good with, like, very into things with their hands, and they're very much like, I would be surprised if both of them don't go into some sort of trade of some kind. And guess what? They have the wrong father for that, because that's not my gifting. But you know what? My heart is that they succeed, and my heart is for them to love the Lord.
That the Lord would bring.
And so guess what? I am praying and hoping that if that is the path that they take, that whether through friendship, through the church, through whatever, that God will place those people in their path.
Yeah. You know what that hits is the heart of every parent.
Yes.
Isn't that our secret prayer? You hit that age where your parents are just making noise in your ear, and then you really desperately need, like, that other person. And I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Jay was my youth group leader. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you think back on those people now, and me and you have talked about this privately off camera, but you have such fondness for them, and you see the hand of God in that. This is what he really told us to do. Make disciples. I'm coming back. You're supposed to make disciples.
Yes.
And we sometimes do everything except for that.
Yeah.
Because that is some hard work. There's no formula, no code, no app. All the stuff that hits the nerve endings. I have a couple people I'm mentoring, and they're always getting into the places I don't want them to get into in my life, because it's like costly.
It's us saying yes. It's us showing up. It's us caring. It's us building relationships with the kids and with other leaders.
Yeah.
The Lord is the one who's going to do the work. The Lord is the one who's going to water that seed that we do plant. This has been the most humbling experience of my life, but I think in a good way, in that I have realized it's nothing that I'm going to do. There are a lot of nights where I'm more tired when I go home.
I would remind you, brother, that the mindset that you're describing is rewarded is just rewarded eternally.
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, in the West, man, is that not the greatest veil over our eyes? It's not to live for eternity in anything that has anything to do with true religion, anything that has anything to do with planting redwoods for like a tree you don't have shade under or whatever that's eternal work. It's not as sexy and it doesn't have as much dividends in the now. And so therefore in a Western world, there's not a lot of lines lining up. I want to encourage you too. I've always admired you for this, Jeremy. So you were a very talented basketball player. You're tall, and there's a period in your life where the world is rewarding all those obvious things, because a lot of those skills immediately reap good things in the now, good personality, quick to laugh, all that stuff. You go to college, you play basketball, you do all this. Then you get married, and then you hit some personal struggles, which your testimony is already out there. If somebody wants to hear it, I'll even link it to this. And then dive into foster care and adoption. And then the Lord takes you the complete other end of the road, which is like all the work's done in the Shadowlands. Total sacrificial instead of like glory-ridden. You want to get involved with you. As if like, this is the image in my mind. It's like somebody's got lead bricks on their feet in a lake and I just handed you a baby.
You know, you talked about doing ministry that is in the dark or in the shadows.
Game.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's a muscle that you have to train. But what I have seen is the greatest steps in my faith have been the hardest things here on earth. It has been like my kids in foster care
so true,
and in youth ministry. And there are times where, you know, I'm frustrated on a given night. I'm sure Emma has had times where things are a little bit harder. But that's where you lean into the Lord. That's where your faith grows.
Yes, 100%.
And again, it's not you. And that's what, like, my call isn't, hey, come be famous and hey, come find your calling and, you know, whatever. My plea to the church is that God can use you in ways that you can't even imagine, and lean into it and say yes. And there are so many people with stories in our church that can reach a kid better than I could. Every single week, is it going to be perfect? And is it going to look amazing? And, oh, look at this flock that has followed me and is perfect? No. But I think that there are kids that are longing for a relationship. And I think that leaders that are willing to say yes and are genuine can reach them and pour into their lives. And that's all we can ask.
Sounds like the kingdom, man. You know, you were saying something earlier. I love that you said this. You're like, I'm not going to be the one that brings them to salvation. That's the work of the Lord. You say yes, you're a conduit, you're obedient. I have to remind myself of that week in and week out with all this stuff that we do at church, that you can get trapped in that quicksand of you thinking that you're going to puppeteer this stuff or environment this stuff. But if there's any power, it's at best you just saying yes. Do we even believe in the power of conviction anymore? Like, do we believe that a person can show up all prickly and not receive the gospel well, leave our presence, and a week later come back and be ready for the Lord? You know what? I don't think evangelicals believe that anymore. I think we're like, if we didn't get the feels right then and there, I'm among the condemned before the firing squad. That's like us believing in our own power. If we don't even believe in the conviction that the Holy Spirit can do that conviction and then return that. Like, I really wonder how many of us believe that. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing I would say, you know, just from like conversations that I've had with people in the church is like, I've had people say, oh, well, I couldn't because whether it's talking in front of people or where I'm at in my faith journey or what I'm experiencing. And what I would say is come as you are. And the reason why I say that is because the kids may refine you, ask questions that bring out things in your own faith, that grow your faith.
I'm raising kids right now. That's 100%
yes. And what better way to grow in your faith than be questioned about why you believe what you believe. We should
bang on that thing with a hammer.
We should accept that
yes.
and want that. And it's not just that. It's that, there have been countless times just since I've started in this role, where I've heard someone else speak. There is no perfect training. There is no perfect experience. There is no, if your heart is set to grow, if your heart is set to kingdom work, and if your heart is set and right with the kids, like, I always laugh, like, when we talk about like growth groups or things with the church, like middle school ministry is very much like that, like you're sharing with other leaders, you're growing, you're learning, you're learning how to, engage with the kids better. I've built great relationships in my short time with other leaders in youth ministry.
Yeah, because you're in the trenches, man.
Exactly.
I want to encourage you one more time. You're raising all these kids. We all want our kids to become passionate believers that never fall away. Mm-hmm. The number one indicator of that is if your dad's really a believer. Like if you see your dad and he's not just doing this, oh man, I want a peace with my wife. So, you know what I mean? But like that dude, like the kids, he's not fooling his kids, but the dude, he's in the trenches taking mortar fire and all that stuff. His kids aren't going to be able to say he's not in it.
Yeah.
And you know what? What a blessing to you.
As a society, like, we think we have to be, we're used to resumes, and we're used to, hey, we got to check every box.
We are used to resumes.
And youth ministry is not resume driven. It's heart driven.
Well, the more I walk with Jesus, the more he calls me into the wild. When I actually read my Bible, he's calling us into the wild. I want to call out, man, I want to say something to men. We need volunteers for Impact Youth. You're going to be making a difference. This is what I actually think it is. You're going to take mortar rounds. You're going to be like those vets in Band of Brothers, limping back off the front lines and tell to the other brothers in arms. I think a lot of men sit at home. I really believe this and think, I'm not doing enough for the kingdom. I really think they feel this. I talk to them. And what I'm saying is, we're calling you to take the mortar rounds, the servant leadership. Jesus was taking incoming from the Sadducees, from the Pharisees. He was taking incoming from the other Jews. This was not an easy thing. And he calls you to be on his heels. So like, how much incoming are you taking? How much like difficult work are you doing? And these kids, like, I believe that the Lord is bringing revival through them, but I believe it's going to be like muckraking revival. If you don't know where to find the wild, if you're trying to find the wild, Jeremy, I appreciate you. I admire you. Thanks for sitting down.
Thanks.
Hey, man.